My own family ruined my face with a so-called beauty cream, and 2 years later, my sister came back, begging for help. Growing up, my parents had one obsession: making our skin lighter. Every time we stepped outside in summer, my mom would count how often we left the shade. Each time meant one punishment when we got home. Every morning, she'd coat my sister and me in skin-lightening cream from the discount store. The paler we looked, the more affection we got. I just wanted to be a normal kid. But my sister? She embraced it all. She became the perfect daughter in their eyes, waking herself every 2 hours at night just to look more tired, more pale. And instead of being worried about her health, my parents adored her for it. They bought her fancy dresses, jewelry, whatever she wanted. It was clear, if I wanted love, I had to look like her. So I tried everything else. Top grades, cleaning the entire house every weekend, even giving them foot rubs. But no matter what I did, they always said the same thing. If only you worked as hard at becoming beautiful, like your sister. On my 16th birthday, they gave me a hair product straight from overseas. It smelled like bleach. I cried the whole day, hugging the teddy bear I'd gotten from a bookstore. That's when my sister came into the room and hugged me. I thought she was going to say something kind, that I was beautiful just the way I was. Instead, she whispered, "Ila, I love you, and I want to help you. If I can look this beautiful, so can you." She genuinely believed that hurting herself made her beautiful. That broke something in me. After that, I started using makeup that didn't match my skin tone. I hid my curls, not because I hated my features, but because I thought I had to erase them to be loved. Fast forward 6 years, I just graduated from the University of Florida. I was running regularly, spending time outside, falling in love with my skin again. My boyfriend, Carlos, supported me through everything. He was half Puerto Rican, half Italian, and understood what internalized bias could do to a person. He looked white passing, so I naively thought my family wouldn't react too badly. I was wrong. When we showed up for Thanksgiving, my sister opened the door. She was unrecognizably thin and looked drained. As soon as she saw us, her face twisted in horror, and she cried out, "Dio mio! What are you doing to our bloodline?" Carlos squeezed my hand to reassure me, but I could already feel the tears coming. My mother rushed to me yelling, trying to undo my slicked-back bun like it was offensive. Then she saw Carlos. Her smile froze. "Oh, so this is just a phase, right? You're joking? He's not really your boyfriend?" She laughed, as if it were hilarious. My dad tried to drag me inside and handed my sister a new version of the same cream from our childhood. But this one was different. It burned. "No! Get away from me!" I screamed, but she had already swiped it across my face. Within seconds, my skin blistered. I collapsed, crying in pain while Carlos called for help. Instead of panicking, my dad tried to wrestle the phone away from him. "She'll thank us. Beauty is pain." My face felt like it was on fire. Nurses later told me the damage was serious. By the time help arrived, I'd already lost my eyebrows. After emergency skin graft surgery, I woke up to Carlos holding my hand, calling me beautiful. But my phone was blowing up with messages. The first voicemail? From my mother, saying I was a disgrace to the family. The second voicemail from my mom was downright threatening. By the 10th, my sister's tone had completely changed. She was pleading now. "Please," she said, "they're our parents. They just want what's best for us. Come home. We can fix this." I couldn't believe she still believed that. After everything, her voice sounded flat, like someone who'd given up a long time ago. Carlos sat quietly beside me, listening to every message, his face growing more worried with each one. "Layla," he said gently, This isn't normal. What they did, it was abuse." "It's always been abuse." I nodded, but hearing someone say it out loud unlocked something in me. For years, I'd been chasing love that should have been unconditional. I had let them hurt me over and over, because I thought that's just how family worked. I made excuses for them. I told myself I just wasn't good enough. That afternoon, a hospital social worker came in. She asked what had happened to my face. And for the first time in my life, I told someone everything. I can't go into all the details here, but the full story's on the channel. Links in the description. What I can tell you is this. I was still in the hospital when I decided to press charges. The social worker helped me file a report. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely sign my name. The officer who took my statement, Officer Ramirez, looked like he'd seen cases like mine before. "You're doing the right thing," he said. I almost walked out 50 times during that conversation. It feels wrong to report your own parents, even when they've literally scarred your face. Carlos stayed by my side through the entire process, held my hand, snuck in real food because, let's be honest, hospital meals are tragic. The nurses kept calling him my husband. Neither of us corrected them. Honestly, it felt comforting, like maybe I could build something new. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop lighting up. I had to shut it off. Reading their messages was making my heart race, and the doctor warned me that wasn't helping my recovery. My mom bounced between begging and threatening. My dad sent long paragraphs about family loyalty and betraying our roots, which was ironic, considering they spent years trying to bleach those roots right off my skin. But the hardest messages were from my sister, Elena. "They're going to take me away if you go through with this," she wrote. "Please, Illa. I need them. I don't know how to survive without them." That hit me like a punch to the chest, because I knew exactly what she meant. When your whole sense of worth is tied to making someone else happy, the idea of cutting them off feels like erasing yourself. After 3 days in the hospital, I was discharged. My face was still bandaged. I looked like something out of a low-budget mummy movie. The doctor said the skin grafts would need monitoring and gave me a prescription for a healing cream that cost more than my monthly rent. Thank God Carlos's insurance covered most of it. We went straight to his place. I didn't feel safe going home, not with the chance my parents might show up. His apartment was small, cramped, and nothing matched, but I'd never felt safer in my life. That first night, I broke down, full-on ugly crying. Carlos just held me, let me say everything I'd been holding in for years, how I should have acted sooner, how maybe I'd failed my sister, how maybe I was just overreacting. He didn't argue. He just kept gently wiping tears away, careful around the bandages. At around 3 a.m., I whispered, "You know what's crazy? A part of me still wants them to love me. After all this. How messed up is that?" The next morning, someone knocked. I panicked. I hid. But it wasn't them. It was Officer Ramirez. And another officer, a woman I hadn't met. "We spoke to your parents," Ramirez said. "They're claiming it was a misunderstanding, that it was just an allergic reaction to a beauty product." I just stared. Of course they'd say that. They'd been rewriting the story for years. The other officer, Officer Chen, asked if I had any proof. Photos of past injuries? Records? Packaging of what they'd used on me? I didn't. Who takes photos of that kind of pain as a kid? Who keeps the bottles of what hurt them? And that's when I felt the panic rising. What if they didn't believe me? For a second, I honestly thought they'd get away with it. Again, like they always had. Then Carlos stepped in. "The hospital ran a chemical analysis," he said. "It proves what was on her face wasn't any standard skincare product." Officer Chen nodded. "We'll get that report. In the meantime, we've filed a temporary restraining order. They're legally banned from contacting you." After they left, I checked my phone. Again, 17 missed calls from my mom, 12 from my dad, 23 from Elena, and dozens of messages. The latest one from Elena made my stomach twist. "They're telling people you're unstable, that you've always made up stories. They even found old photos of you smiling at family events. They're using those to prove you were fine." I showed the text to Carlos. "They're going to flip everything," I said. "Make it look like I'm the problem." Carlos gently suggested I reach out to anyone who might have seen things over the years. And immediately 2 names popped into my head. Mrs. Patel, our old neighbor, she used to let me hide in her apartment when things got bad. And Mr. Thompson, my high school counselor. He once noticed the makeup I'd used to cover bruises, but backed off when I made up some excuse. So, I started calling around. But most people just remembered a weird vibe. Nothing clear enough to help. Mrs. Patel had moved out of state. Mr. Thompson didn't have any records. I was starting to lose hope. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is Jasmine, from college. Carlos gave me your number. I have pictures from freshman year, from that dorm party. The ones where the makeup rubbed off. I never deleted them. Let me know if you want them." I had completely forgotten those even existed. I'd been so embarrassed at the time, I'd begged her to delete them. But thank God she hadn't. I called her right away, and she promised to send them. Meanwhile, Carlos, he was incredible. Rearranged his whole work schedule just to drive me to appointments. Cooked real meals, not instant noodles. Never once complained about my stuff taking over his space. One night, I caught him researching how to help with chemical burn recovery. He thought I was asleep. About a week after we filed the report, I got a call from Danielle, a victim advocate from the district attorney's office. We're reviewing everything now, she said. The hospital records confirmed the cream had dangerously high levels of hydroquinone and banned mercury compounds. I wasn't surprised. My parents always believed that the more harmful the product, the better it worked. But then she said something that made my chest tighten. We also received a statement from your sister. For a split second, I let myself hope that maybe Elena had spoken up. But no, Danielle continued. She's supporting their version of events. Said you've always been jealous, that you made it all up. I hung up and threw my phone across the room. Carlos rushed over, held me while I broke down. Again. She's scared, he said. She's still in that house. She's surviving the only way she knows how. I knew he was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. Elena had lived through it all. She knew the truth, and she was still defending them. The next day, I did something I hadn't tried yet. I called her. No texts, just a direct call. She answered. Lila, you need to stop, she said right away, voice low, like she was afraid of being overheard. They're furious. Dad broke the coffee table yesterday. I've never seen him like this. Elena, I said carefully, they're hurting you. They always have. When's the last time you ate a full meal? Slept a full night? I'm fine, she snapped. I'm beautiful. Everyone says so? You're disappearing, I said. Every time I see you, there's less of you left. Silence. Then, in the smallest whisper, I don't know how to be anything else. Neither did I told her. But I'm learning. You can too. She hung up. I called back, but it went straight to voicemail. I left her a message, told her I loved her, and that if she ever needed a safe place, Carlos and I would be here. The case against my parents moved slowly. Interviews, paperwork, more interviews. The DA decided to pursue charges, assault and child endangerment, based on the most recent incident. But the older abuse? Harder to prove without records or witnesses. Danielle explained that unless there was more, it'd be my word against theirs. Carlos suggested something simple but powerful. Write it all down, he said, every detail. Even if it doesn't help the case, it'll help you process. So I went to the campus bookstore, bought a cheap notebook, and started writing. I started filling the notebook, one memory at a time. The day my mom slapped me so hard my nose bled. All because I'd played in the sprinklers at a friend's house. The Christmas, my dad gave Elena a gold necklace and handed me a bottle of skin-whitening cream. The endless mornings of painful hair straightening, where I was told my natural curls made me look messy. Writing it down was like opening a wound that had been festering for years. It hurt, but the pain had to come out. Some nights I could only manage a few lines before breaking down. Other nights I'd write until dawn, my tears smudging the ink. 3 weeks after everything went down at Thanksgiving, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected. Aunt Rosa, my mom's sister. We weren't close. She'd moved to Miami when I was little, and I only saw her at the occasional family event. Illa, she said, her voice warm but tense. I just heard what happened. Your mother called me crying, saying you were spreading awful lies. My stomach dropped. Great. Now they were pulling the extended family into it. It's not lies, Tia, I said quietly. They've been hurting me and Elena for years. There was a pause, and then 2 words I didn't expect to hear. I know. I froze. You what? I always suspected, she said. Your mom was obsessed with how you looked. You two never played outside. I brought it up once, and she shut me down so hard I never asked again. I should have done more. I sank onto Carlos's couch, suddenly lightheaded. Why are you calling now? Because I believe you, she said. And because I found something. She told me that when she and my mom were kids, their grandmother had done the same thing. Forced skin bleaching. Obsession with looking more European. I found your mom's old journals, she said. It was all in there. It didn't excuse what had been done to me, but it helped me understand. This didn't start with me. My mother had inherited this harm, and instead of breaking the cycle, she passed it on. Aunt Rosa offered to send the diaries, and even said she'd testify if needed. She also said I could come stay with her in Miami if I needed distance. I thanked her, but told her I was okay at Carlos's. The next day, I had another follow-up at the dermatologist. Good news. My face was healing better than expected. The new skin was forming. There would be scarring, but not as severe as they originally thought. As we left the clinic, I spotted someone by the parking lot, Elena. She was thinner than ever, standing by her car. When she saw me, she walked over slowly. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I followed Mom to the store," she said. "I saw your appointment on the calendar." Carlos hovered nearby, letting us talk but clearly keeping an eye out. "I've been thinking," she whispered, "what you said about disappearing. I looked in the mirror this morning and I didn't even recognize myself." I moved to hug her, but she flinched. "Elena, you don't have to keep living like this. You can get help. You can leave." She shook her head quickly. "I can't. They're watching me all the time now. Dad took my phone. I'm using Mom's while she's shopping." She glanced around nervously. "I don't have anywhere to go." "You can stay with us," Carlos said instantly. "We'll make room." She blinked like he'd spoken another language. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." "You're her sister," he said, like that was the only reason that mattered. And maybe for him, it was. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She checked it and went pale. "Mom's done. I have to go." She turned to leave, then paused. "I found this," she said, pulling a small USB drive from her bag. "In Dad's office. It has their payment records. They've been ordering that stuff for years. It's all in there. Shipments, ingredients, everything." I took the drive, stunned. "Elena, this could help the case a lot." "I know," she said. "That's why I took it." She started walking away, then called back. "Text me your address. I'll try to come by tomorrow." Carlos slipped his hand into mine. "She's stronger than she thinks." "We both are," I said. That night, we plugged in the drive. It was all there. Years of records, international shipments of banned creams from suppliers overseas. The ingredients were terrifying. Mercury-based compounds, dangerously high hydroquinone levels, even something called clito-olropionate, a prescription-strength steroid that should never be used on the face long-term. I called Danielle immediately. She sounded almost relieved. "This could change everything," she said. "Bring it to my office first thing tomorrow." The next morning, I couldn't sit still. I kept worrying Elena might not show up. What if our parents followed her? What if she got scared and changed her mind? Carlos, ever the calm one, suggested we get the apartment ready, just in case. We picked up ingredients for quesadillas, her favorite, back before she started heavily restricting her eating. The entire day passed without a sign of her. I texted the number she'd used but got no reply. By evening, I was pacing the apartment, convinced something had gone wrong. "Maybe she couldn't get away," Carlos said. "Or maybe she's just afraid." We were about to sit down and eat without her when there was a quiet knock at the door. Carlos checked the peephole, then opened it without hesitation. There stood Elena. Her backpack looked too small for anything meaningful. Her face was paler than ever. She stepped inside and immediately whispered, "They know I took the drive." Dad was tearing the house apart looking for it. He started yelling at Mom, accusing her. I slipped out while they were distracted. I hugged her, and this time she didn't flinch. She felt light, fragile, like a bird that had flown too long through a storm. "You're safe now," I told her. I hoped it was true. Carlos made dinner while I helped her settle in. We'd cleared out a corner of the living room, set up an air mattress with clean sheets. Elena looked at it like it was some five-star hotel. "I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time in years," she admitted. "Mom always said pretty girls don't need much sleep." "Well, tonight," I said, "you can sleep as long as you want. No alarms. No rules." At dinner, I noticed her pushing food around on her plate, taking tiny bites. I didn't say anything. Healing wouldn't happen overnight. After dinner, she showered. When she came out in one of Carlos's oversized t-shirts, I spotted fresh bruises on her arms. "Did they hurt you when they realized the drive was gone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked down at the marks, almost surprised to see them. "Dad grabbed me. He does that sometimes when he's angry. Like it was the weather, like it was normal." I took photos for evidence, then gently helped her apply healing cream. We sat quietly afterward, the silence between us full of everything we didn't know how to say. "I'm sorry I said you were lying," she whispered eventually. "I was just scared." "I know," I said. "You don't have to apologize." She fell asleep fast, exhaustion catching up. I tucked another blanket around her and joined Carlos in his room. That night, we talked in hushed voices about what came next. Protecting her now wasn't optional. It was everything. The next morning, I called Danielle. She suggested Elena come in to give her own statement, now that she was in a safe space. Elena agreed, but she was terrified. "What if they don't believe me?" she asked as we drove. "What if they say I'm just trying to copy you?" "The bruises help," I said gently. "And we have the records from the drive. It matters." Her interview lasted over 2 hours. Carlos and I waited in silence outside. When she finally came out, her eyes were red from crying. But she looked lighter, like she'd dropped a weight she'd been carrying since childhood. "They believed me," she said, almost in disbelief. "They're going to add charges." "For what happened to me, too!" Danielle came out moments later and confirmed it. With Elena's statement and the financial evidence, the case had grown stronger. New charges were being filed: child abuse, endangerment, assault, and now, illegal importation of banned substances. A court date would be scheduled soon. We'd both have to testify. The thought made my stomach turn, but I nodded. "We'll be ready." That afternoon, we got the call. Officer Ramirez again. Our parents had been arrested. They were being held on multiple charges, and the bail amount was high enough that they probably wouldn't be getting out anytime soon. I thought I'd feel safe, but instead I just felt numb. Elena, on the other hand, broke down, not from sadness, but something like relief. "It's really over?" she asked through sobs. "They can't make me go back?" "It's really over," I said, wrapping my arms around her. The weeks that followed were full of therapy appointments, which Danielle had set up for both of us, and meetings with the legal team. Carlos's tiny apartment somehow adjusted to having 3 people in it. Elena had the air mattress. I took the couch. Carlos kept the bed. He never complained, not even when the nightmares came often. Sometimes it was Elena waking up screaming. Other times it was me, jolting awake in a cold sweat, convinced I could still smell the chemicals on my skin. Once, I even used Carlos's toothbrush by accident and broke down crying from the shame. Elena's health was fragile. Years of sleep deprivation and restrictive eating had taken a real toll. We found a doctor who specialized in eating disorders, and she started seeing him twice a week. The first time she finished a full meal, without calorie counting or checking her skin in the mirror afterward, she burst into tears. Meanwhile, my face continued to heal. The dermatologist was pleased with my progress but warned me to avoid direct sunlight. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of being punished for getting sun, now I had an actual medical reason to stay in the shade. Eventually, our parents were released on bail. The court ordered them not to contact us. They ignored that almost immediately. New email addresses, fake numbers, even mutual acquaintances delivering messages on their behalf. Danielle told us to document everything, and we did. She said it would only make the case stronger. Then Christmas came. It was the first holiday I'd ever spent away from them. And though there was a quiet ache, there was also something new. Peace. Carlos's family invited us over. His mom made traditional Puerto Rican dishes that reminded me of my grandmother before she passed. Elena ate more that day than I'd seen in years. In January, we got the notice. The trial was set for March. As the date approached, my anxiety spiked. The panic attacks came without warning. I'd wake up gasping, convinced I was still in that house, still being burned. Carlos, always trying to help, signed us up for a painting class at the community center. I was awful at it. My trees looked like broccoli and my sunsets like someone spilled orange juice. But for 2 hours every week, I didn't think about the trial. Or my scars. Elena surprised us all. Her landscapes were actually good. Mountains that looked like mountains. A sky with perspective. The instructor even complimented her. I'll never forget what she said after class. "I didn't know I could make something beautiful. I thought I only existed to be beautiful." In February, Aunt Rosa called again. This time, she had news. Some of our other relatives had come forward. Cousins, another aunt. They had seen things. The way we flinched, the clothes that covered our arms in summer, the obsession with how we looked. They wanted to provide statements. It was more validation than I ever expected. Danielle told us their testimonies would make our case even stronger, but reminded us that trials can still be unpredictable. As March crept closer, Elena made serious progress. She'd gained healthy weight. Her hair looked fuller. She still had trouble sleeping, but now she stayed up to paint, not to punish herself. I was healing too. My scars were still there, but fading. I'd stopped hiding my curls, started wearing them natural, the way they grew. Carlos said they suited me, and for the first time I believed it. Then just 1 week before the trial, someone unexpected showed up at Carlos's door. Aunt Lucia, my dad's sister. Carlos was at work, so it was just me and Elena when she knocked. "They sent me," she said. "Your parents want to make a deal." Elena moved to close the door, but Aunt Lucia stopped her. "Just listen, they'll plead guilty to reduced charges. No trial, no testimony. They'll cover your medical bills, Layla. And they promise to leave you both alone. Forever." I glanced at Elena. She looked like she'd been punched in the stomach. "We need to think about it," I said. "Come back tomorrow." The moment the door closed, we called Danielle. She told us not to agree to anything without legal oversight. She came over that evening. "They're panicking," she said. "The evidence is strong and they know it. This is them trying to cut their losses." "What happens if we take the deal?" Elena asked. "Most likely," Danielle said, "they won't see jail time, maybe probation, a fine, some community service." I thought of the years they'd taken from us, the pain, the scars, the silence they forced us to live in. "That doesn't feel like enough," I said. "It's your decision," Danielle replied gently. "But testifying won't be easy. You'll have to face them, answer their lawyers' questions. It could be traumatic." That night, Elena and I stayed up late, talking in whispers. Part of me wanted to take the deal, to never have to see their faces again. But another part? That part needed them to finally face the truth. "What do you want to do?" I asked Elena sometime past midnight. She sat there for a long time, silent. Then finally she looked at me and said quietly, "I want them to know they didn't win, that they didn't break us. I want to look them in the eye and tell our story." That's what Elena said the night before the trial. And we meant it. So the next morning, when Aunt Lucia came back expecting a deal, we told her, no, we'd testify. The week leading up to the trial was rough. None of us were sleeping well. Even Carlos, usually calm, was visibly tense. Elena buried herself in painting. The canvases turned darker, more chaotic, like they were pulling feelings straight out of both of us. The night before court, Carlos cooked something special, his grandmother's arroz con gandules. He even brought out a bottle of sparkling cider. "To whatever happens tomorrow," he said, raising his glass, "you two are the bravest people I know, and no matter the outcome, we'll face it together." I looked at my sister across the table, at Carlos beside me, and for the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. No matter what happened in that courtroom, we had already taken back our voices. We had broken the cycle. We were healing. The next morning came with a spring thunderstorm. Rain slapped against the windows as we dressed in the best clothes we had. Carlos wore a button-up and tie. I chose a soft blue dress that matched my skin tone. Elena wore yellow, bright, vulnerable, but strong. As we pulled into the courthouse lot, I spotted them, our parents, huddled beneath a black umbrella. My mother's hat was pulled low over her face. My father's posture was stiff, rigid, like he was marching into battle. "You ready?" Carlos asked quietly. I looked at Elena. She nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be," I said. We walked inside, side by side. Not as victims, but as survivors. The courtroom wasn't like on TV. Just a plain room with wooden benches, flickering lights, and a judge at the front. Our parents were already seated with their lawyer, a polished man in an expensive suit who barely glanced at us. My mom had her hair pulled back tightly, face full of makeup. My dad just stared forward, not even pretending to look at us. Danielle met us at our table and whispered, "Just tell the truth. Don't let him rattle you." When the judge entered, everyone stood. He was older, with thick glasses and a no-nonsense expression. He read through the charges, but I barely heard a word. My hands were shaking so hard I had to stuff them into my pockets. Then it began. My mom testified first. She painted herself as a caring parent, one who only wanted what was best for her daughters. "In our culture," she said softly, "lighter skin opens doors. I just wanted them to succeed." Her lawyer asked if she ever meant to harm us. "Of course not," she replied, looking almost offended. "Ila just had a bad reaction to a product we'd never used before. How could I have known?" But Danielle didn't let it slide. She brought out the financial records Elena had found. "Mrs. Mendez," she said, "can you explain why you repeatedly imported skin creams banned in the United States for their toxicity?" That's when my mother's polished mask cracked. "They work better," she mumbled. "Everyone uses them where we're from." Even though they contain mercury? My mother hesitated, then quietly muttered, "Beauty requires sacrifice." The whole courtroom went still. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. My father's testimony wasn't much better. He tried to play the concerned but tough parent, said he just wanted us to have a better life than he did. But when Danielle showed photos, the chemical burns on my face, the bruises on Elena's arms, he couldn't explain them away. Then came the defense. Their lawyer tried to discredit me. He brought up how I'd acted out as a teen, staying out late, arguing at home, like that somehow justified everything. "Isn't it true," he asked, "that you were jealous of your sister's natural beauty?" I almost laughed. "No," I said. "I was jealous she was willing to destroy herself to earn their love, and I wasn't." He had nothing after that. Testifying was harder than I thought it'd be. I had to walk the court through everything. The sun punishments, the skin bleaching, the constant shame about how we looked. I saw my mom's face harden. My dad wouldn't meet my eyes. But I kept talking. Because this time, I wasn't silencing myself to protect them. I was speaking for the girl who used to cry into her teddy bear on her birthday. For the sister who learned to flinch before she learned to speak. For the part of me that still, sometimes, wondered if I deserved love. We told the truth, and we said it out loud, in front of everyone. And no matter how the verdict turned out, that, in itself, was justice. As I walked the judge through every painful detail, every slap, every bleaching session, every insult about our features, I could see his face shift. He wasn't just listening. He was disturbed. But when I described what happened that Thanksgiving, how they held me down and smeared burning chemicals across my face, how Carlos had to fight to call for help, I broke down. The tears came hard. "They burned off my eyebrows," I said. "They caused second-degree burns, and they didn't stop. They tried to stop my boyfriend from calling for help." The defense tried to say I was exaggerating, but the photos and medical records spoke louder than any denial. Then Elena took the stand. She looked so delicate, barely above a whisper at first. But as she talked about the sleep deprivation, the constant food restriction, the pressure to look less Hispanic, her voice gained power. "I thought it was normal," she said. "I thought all parents acted like this. It wasn't until I saw Laya healing that I realized what they were doing wasn't love. It was control." When she described how our father left bruises on her arms when he discovered the missing financial records, I actually saw our mother flinch. Maybe she hadn't known. Maybe she just didn't want it out in the open. The trial lasted 3 days. By the end, I was emotionally wrecked. Carlos had taken time off work to be there the entire time. He brought us snacks, held our hands when the questions got hard, and kept reminding us, "You're doing this for the right reasons." On the final day, the defense tried to spin it one last time. "They were immigrants," the lawyer said, "trying to help their daughters fit in. Maybe they made mistakes, but they meant well." Danielle, our lawyer, didn't sugarcoat anything. "This case isn't about culture," she said. "It's about 2 parents who systematically harmed their children, emotionally, physically, psychologically, for years. They imported banned toxic chemicals. They punished their daughters for having brown skin and curly hair. They made them believe love had to be earned through pain." "This isn't love," she said, holding up a photo of my burned face. "This is abuse. Plain and simple." When the judge announced he was ready to deliver the verdict, I grabbed Elena's hand, and Carlos put his arm around both of us. "In the case of State versus Mendez," the judge said, "I find the defendants guilty on all counts." I burst into tears. So did Elena. Not from sadness, but from sheer relief. Carlos just held us both, his eyes glassy too. The sentence was 3 years in prison, with parole possible after 18 months plus 5 years of probation. They were ordered to pay for our medical care. Counseling was mandatory. A restraining order stayed in place. They couldn't contact us unless we gave explicit permission. As the bailiff led them away, my mom looked back. For a split second, I thought I saw regret. But then she turned her head sharply, posture stiff. Whether it was pride or shame, I couldn't tell. Outside, reporters were waiting. The case had attracted attention, the kind no one asks for. Danielle helped us avoid the cameras. We weren't ready to speak publicly, not yet. That night, we celebrated. Pizza, ice cream, a cheap bottle of sparkling cider. But to us, it felt like the most important meal of our lives. Elena ate a full slice of pizza without counting calories. I wore my curls out and a tank top that showed my natural skin tone. Little victories. But they meant everything. What now? Elena asked, curled up on the couch. Whatever we want, I said, and for the first time, it felt true. The months that followed were full of transition. Carlos's apartment was too small for 3 people long term, so we started looking for something more permanent. Elena got a part-time job at an art supply store. Her confidence grew. She started sketching again, not just painting. I focused on finishing my final semester at university. We kept going to therapy. Some days were hard. I still had nightmares about Thanksgiving. Elena still struggled with food and body image. But we were healing, slowly, steadily, together. One of the brightest surprises was Aunt Rosa. She visited from Miami a few times and even offered to help financially. I should have done more when you were kids, she said. Let me help now. With her support and our savings, we found a small, cozy 2-bedroom apartment near campus. Carlos helped us move in. He even painted Elena's room the exact shade of lavender she loved as a child. We were building something new. From the ashes of what we'd survived, we were creating something no one could take away. Safety, stability, family. Not the kind we were born into, the kind we chose. And every morning we woke up in that quiet apartment, we were reminded, they didn't win. We did. Carlos helped us move into our new place, though he kept his own apartment. You two need your space, he said with a smile. Still, he stayed over often enough that it felt like he lived with us anyway. About 6 months after the trial, I got a letter. From my mom. It had been screened by her prison counselor, who attached a note saying it might be part of her rehabilitation process. But I wasn't required to read it, or respond. I stared at that envelope for 3 days before I finally opened it. It was a single page, handwritten. Ela, it began, I'm sorry. The counselor here is helping me understand that what I did to you and Elena was wrong. I was raised this way by my own grandmother. But that's no excuse. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I'll understand if you can't. There was more apologies, more mixed explanations that sometimes sounded a little too much like excuses. I handed the letter to Elena. She read it silently and gave it back. Do you believe her? She asked. I shrugged. Maybe. Maybe she's starting to get it. Or maybe she's just writing what her counselor wants to hear. Are you going to write back? I thought about it. A long time. Not yet, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not now. Elena nodded. Me neither. We never heard from our dad. Not once. Aunt Rosa said she visited them in prison once, just once, and that he was still bitter, still angry, still blaming me for turning Elena against them and ruining the family. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. It still hurt, though. Time moved forward. I graduated with my degree in psychology, driven by my own experience to help others dealing with family trauma. Elena enrolled in community college, focusing on art therapy. She was still healing, still delicate in some ways. But every day, she grew stronger. Carlos and I, we got more serious. He proposed on my birthday nearly a year after the Thanksgiving incident. Nothing flashy. Just the two of us walking through the botanical gardens on campus when he turned to me and asked. I said yes, immediately. We planned a long engagement, time to build our lives before marriage. 2 years after the trial, we got a call from Danielle. Our parents had been released on parole. The restraining order still stood, and their parole officer was informed. But that night, I had a panic attack anyway. Carlos came over and slept on the couch, just to help us feel safer. But our parents never came. According to Aunt Rosa, they'd moved to a different city. Over time, my mom sent a few more letters, each one a little more thoughtful, a little less defensive. I eventually wrote back, just once, a short note to say I was safe. I wasn't ready for more. Elena never responded at all. 3 years after the trial, Carlos and I got married. Nothing huge, just a small ceremony in a local park. Elena was my maid of honor. She looked radiant in a dress that embraced her natural skin tone. Confident, healthy, beautiful. Aunt Rosa came from Miami, bringing cousins who had once testified on our behalf. Carlos's big, joyful family welcomed us all with open arms. His mom hugged me like I was her own daughter, and treated Elena just the same. We didn't invite our parents. I thought about it, talked it over in therapy, but I wasn't ready. Maybe one day, but not yet. And still, It was the wedding I had always dreamed of. Not because it was glamorous, but because I was surrounded by people who loved me. For me, I wore my curls natural, decorated with tiny white flowers. My makeup was light, my skin radiant and bare. The scars were still faintly visible if you looked closely, but I didn't cover them. They were part of the story. Elena caught the bouquet and blushed when Carlos's cousin Ralph asked her to dance. They'd been tiptoeing around each other for months. It was sweet to see her finally open up to something like love. She hadn't dated since we left our parents' house. She'd been too focused on surviving. Now, she was living. Carlos and I danced our first dance under fairy lights, and as I looked around the park, at Elena laughing, at Aunt Rosa tearing up, at Carlos smiling down at me, I realized something. This wasn't just a wedding. This was our beginning. "What are you thinking?" Carlos asked, noticing the look on my face. "Just how far we've come," I said. 3 years ago, I was in a hospital, burned and broken. Elena was starving herself to survive. And now look at us. He spun me gently. "You're the strongest person I know." I laughed. "I don't feel strong most days." "That's what makes you strong," he said. "You keep going anyway." After the wedding, life found a rhythm. Carlos and I bought a small house with a backyard. I started a garden. I loved getting my hands dirty, letting the sun touch my skin without fear or punishment. Elena moved into her own place, close to campus. She started teaching art classes. She still went to therapy, still worked through the hard days. So did I. But that's the thing about healing. It's not instant. It's not linear. It's not perfect. But it's possible. And every day we woke up in homes we chose, living lives we built, surrounded by people who saw us as whole, not something to be corrected. And that was the real victory. Elena was still working through food and body image challenges, but she was thriving in ways I never imagined possible. Then, on the 5th anniversary of that Thanksgiving, the day everything broke, I received another letter from our mom. But this one, it was different. There were no justifications. No soft excuses, just acknowledgement. And a request. "If you're ever willing," she wrote, "I'd like to see you and Elena again. On your terms. In a place where you feel safe." I understand if the answer is no. I showed it to Elena during one of our weekly sister dinners. She read it slowly, her expression unreadable. "What do you think?" I asked. She sighed. "I don't know. Part of me never wants to see her again. But another part wants closure." "Closure," I echoed. "We talked about it for weeks. With each other, with our therapists. Eventually we agreed to meet. Just her, not our dad. We picked a neutral place. A quiet coffee shop near our therapist's office. Carlos came with us, sitting nearby, a calming presence just in case. When we arrived, our mom was already there, sitting at a corner table, both hands wrapped around a mug. She looked older, grayer, smaller. When she saw us, she stood, but didn't move toward us, respecting the boundaries we'd made clear in advance. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft. The conversation started awkwardly. Small talk felt wrong, but jumping straight into the heavy stuff felt impossible. Eventually, though, she broke the silence. "I want you both to know," she said. "I understand now. What I did to you, what we did, it was wrong. No excuse." Elena stared into her coffee. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why did you hate how we looked so much?" Our mom's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't hate you. I hated myself. My grandmother treated me the same way. And I thought I was helping you avoid that pain. But I passed it on instead." We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't magical. It wasn't a healing miracle. There were pauses, tears, uncomfortable moments. But it was honest. Before we left, she asked gently if we might be open to meeting again. She made it clear we didn't have to, and that she wouldn't ask us to see our father. We told her we'd think about it. As we walked back to the car, Carlos asked how we felt. "Weird," Elena said. "I'm glad we did it, but I kind of want to go home and cry now." "Same," I admitted. "I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her, but I think I understand her better." We did meet again, a few months later. Then again after that. Not to rebuild the bond we'd never really had, but to build something new, honest, boundaried, real. She never pressured us to reconnect with our dad, and we never offered. Life kept moving forward. Carlos and I had our first child, a daughter. We named her Rosa, after the aunt who had been the first to believe us. Elena became the world's most devoted aunt, making handmade toys, tiny framed paintings for the nursery. The first time our mom met Rosa, I watched her like a hawk, waiting to see if she'd slip into old habits, judging, criticizing, trying to fix what didn't need fixing. But she didn't. She held Rosa in her arms, smiling and cooing, and said, "You're perfect, just the way you are." "She is," I replied, gently taking my daughter back. "And she always will be, no matter what she looks like." My mom nodded. She understood exactly what I was really saying. "Yes," she whispered, "she will be." 7 years after the Thanksgiving that changed our lives, Elena married Ralph in a beachside ceremony. She wore a sleeveless dress that showed her skin proudly. Her hair flowed down her back in soft, natural curls. She looked radiant, strong, free. At the reception, I found a quiet moment with her. Just the two of us. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" I asked. She glanced around, at the sand, the family, the laughter, and smiled. A full, real smile. "Never. I thought I'd spend my whole life trying to disappear. But now I'm learning how to take up space. The right kind of space." I hugged her, careful not to mess up her hair. "You're doing a pretty good job of it." Later that night, I watched Carlos dancing with our daughter, now a toddler, standing on his feet as they twirled around the floor. My heart felt like it might burst. Our story wasn't perfect. It still had shadows. There were days when the memories crept too close, when the past echoed too loudly. But we had something we'd never been given as children: unconditional love, real safety, a future that belonged to us, not defined by shame or silence, but by truth, by healing, and by the family we chose to become.